Thanks for joining us for the ReThink podcast again. This is number 6 in Turkey. We're live and in Philadelphia.
Bring on the cheesesteak.
We've been looking all over town. I cannot find a cheesesteak. We're in the city of
Brotherly love.
Not feeling any love.
No, just like the unreal Philadelphia. It's known for being one of the meanest cities in America.
This city got its name from a Roman emperor. The emperors had a habit of changing names to cities to honor like one of their family members, and I don't know, his cousin's brother's dog was named Billy, so he passed that on to this city. And if you're from here, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be offensive there.
Wasn't it his brother?
It's real confusing.
Okay.
It's like his brother's cousin's wife's third sister or something like that.
Well, I do believe it was a dude, so...
Yeah, probably right. They would not name a city after a woman, would he? Maybe he might. Anyway.
Viewership is continuing to go down.
The content is heavy here. Now, this is a church that's to be commended, I guess, of all of them. He doesn't say anything bad to these folks. He knows their deeds. He knows what's going on here. He knows about the trouble and the persecution, and they're holding faithful, right? But he knows it's not going to be easy. So, anyway, new names. God does that a lot. I was thinking in preparation of different people in Scripture who had a big task before him, and God says, "I'm going to give you a new name." Who comes to your mind?
Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
Peter, obviously. Yeah, Simon.
Yep.
Peter, you'll be the rock.
Paul.
Paul, Abram, and Sarah. You're going to have a child in your old age. It'll be the father of a great nation, new kingdom, new way of doing things. So yeah, God changes names for a message, right? For a reason. And so to Philadelphia, they've experienced that. They've had the name change multiple times brought upon them. And Jesus says, I'm going to do that. But he says he's going to do that to you too. So what's your heavenly name?
Isn't it the street you grew up on and your middle name? We've been down this road before.
Okay, so I was thinking about this name changes, right? Because we adopted a son from a different country, and no one could say his name, not even me, right?
Do you know it now?
Oh, yeah, I know what it is. I'm not going to say what it was. But, so, like, when we got him, everything in his life was wrapped up in that name. You know? He came and went by that name, and we gave him a new name because he was brought into our family. And so now he has a new purpose. He's known by a new name, and he responds to a new name.
Did that take a while for him to own that?
Yeah, about a year.
Did it?
About a year.
About a year that he would repeatedly tell us, that's not my name, you know, by his new name.
How old was he when
We adopted him when he was 5, and so yeah, it took about a full year before he embraced his new name.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, I think that kind of happens with us. You know, we become Christ followers. We've got a promise, at least, of a new name, and we're Christians. We're Christians, right? And that's the discipleship process of learning.
You know what changed the name for him was truly like love. Is showing that we actually loved him and would care for him, and that we were his parents. And so that even plays into Philadelphia, like brotherly love. Like, there's a love that's even bigger than the philo love that we talked about earlier on this year and stuff. But there's an agape love, and the agape love is what changes our name, changes our future, changes our trajectory.
It's that love that I think makes us hold on to the hope we have. Because, you know, you look at the context of this church, and they're told, hey, you can't be a part of this Roman culture because of your faith. And, you know, not only is this a small site today, but this was a small church with a very small influence. And I think sometimes, you know, we look at churches and we think like, oh man, the bigger they are, that they got it going on. But sometimes that's not always the case, you know? A small group of believers that held tight together, which is pretty incredible.
I think the crazy thing about just this location is there's like nothing left.
There's nothing left.
You know, there's
So
a
we
theater
really struggled with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Some-
chose
that you
this
can't
spot.
tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, we chose this spot for the podcast because that hillside at one point was a theater.
You said 10,000
I think
people?
10,000 people.
Wow.
And you can see
Yeah.
by the slope how if it was, carved out and stepped and such, at the bottom of it they could have a theater. So there's that. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, we did some old remnants in the city, but they're 6th century,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so they're not really even legit for what we're talking about. There's nothing.
Right.
There's nothing left of ancient Philadelphia, but the people remain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the gospel remains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what carries through.
I mean, when Jesus says, "Store up for yourself a treasure in heaven," right? And that has to be people. The relationships we have with people in Christ is the only thing that transfers from this life to the next.
Yeah.
You know, through all of these sites, you stand and you look at the ruins. Here there's not much. Others are decent, but they're all ruins. They're all broken down. And today it just kind of hit me like, there will be a day, 2,000 years from now, where what we've perceived as building up as being impenetrable or whatever will be reduced to ruins. I mean, some things in Clay County may stand.
The McHenry School is not going down.
Asbestos will not go away.
The gym floor is going to live on.
It will remain, but that'll be the only thing. That'll be it.
Tourists will come and see it.
They will. But it's like
You're right.
there's going to be a day where what we've spent, if we have our hope in the wrong things, we've spent our whole life building. It's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And so I like what you said about the gospel is the thing that has lasted forever, regardless of the buildings, the people, the followers of Christ, and the message of the gospel are still remaining. And it's just really hit me this week that there's going to be a day where the things that I've built up that maybe poured a lot of my life into won't last.
I think that's an important thing for us to really wrestle with is like, what are we building in our lives? Are we building our own kingdom, or are we participating in God's kingdom? Because the only thing that's going to last is God's kingdom.
Yeah.
That's what has. You think about this. Okay, 2,000 years ago, right? Like approximately, this stuff is going on. Christians are, facing persecution, all this different stuff. And yet we're sitting here today because somebody shared the gospel with somebody, and it just kept continuing down until it made it to the United States of America.
Yeah.
Like, this is where Christianity, we talked about the cradle of Christianity, really started to take off, and that's why it's so important here in the book of Revelation to understand, like, the victory is in Christ, and the message he claims and gives to us is the one that lives on.
So here's something to consider, because he says, hold on to what you have so that no one will take your crown.
Mm-hmm.
So these are people that AD 17, that this place was destroyed, and the Romans exempt them from taxes for just 5 years, right? Well, they're struggling to rebuild. Domitian, out of, I don't know, pride maybe. Greed.
Definitely pride and greed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Has this is on the pathway. The traveling pathway, the road for the soldiers. So a lot of soldiers would come through this area. The report evidently gets to Rome, way west of here, that the vineyards there are better than they are here in Rome. So he sends them to destroy the vineyards, which just shatters the people's income and identity.
Yeah.
Right? But in the midst of that, he says to the Christians, you've already got a crown. How did they get a crown? They're not in a position of authority. They're submissive and subservient to the Romans.
Yeah.
But they've got a crown. Wow. We talk about in Revelation taking the crowns and laying them at the feet of Jesus. That's what we'll do, because he's the reason we wear them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the victory.
Yeah. It goes back to what you were saying about the new name. It's circled all the way back around. And, it's that new identity. One of the things that I think is interesting too is, he says to keep away from temptation, and I think it's the same promise he gives them is the same promise that we have, is we because of Christ have the opportunity to stay away from temptation because the Spirit is alive in us, we got to just keep leaning on that, just as we daily live our life. Keep going back to that to keep us away from falling away. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's the promise in the end that you have to hold to,
Yep.
especially through difficulties, right? But at all times. So they're going to be, they're going to have a new name. They're going to keep their crown. They got a new place that they're going to dwell, right? They're going to go into the Father's temple forever. Nobody can take that away. That is all promised to them for what? For being good? No. For conquering and driving out the Romans? No.
Yeah.
That is just promised to them because they're faithful.
Yep.
They're faithful. They don't deny the faith. They live and hold fast.
You know, we have the benefit of hindsight being here, that we can
Yeah.
see that what they built or where they were didn't last forever. But when we're caught up in our own culture, our own things, we feel like this is never going to end. This is never going to be taken away from me. And we're standing in spots that are no more. Proof that it will. So you can cling to that stuff, or you can cling to the thing that'll last, and it's Christ.
And it needs to be shared, right? It has to be shared because that's one of the issues we've seen as we've traveled around Turkey. Like, we've not found anybody, of course we're not asking because we know 98.9% of the people here would not claim Christ as the Messiah, right?
Yeah.
They're not followers of Jesus. Somewhere along the way in history, that responsibility to make disciples who make disciples was dropped. And you're always only a generation away from drifting away.
That's really good. You should write that down. That was really good. It's
that's
so
where we're
true.
at.
Yeah.
That's where we're at, right? I mean, we're scared of where we're heading as a culture. The younger generation, and I can say that now. Some of you might fit closely on it, you don't, but
What are you saying?
you're out of it, man. I'm talking.
He's like, let's run up this hill. All right, let's go right now.
I'm not that old.
Look at the white face,
I know.
the white face in the camera.
This is what happens when you adopt and have kids.
Just kidding.
That new name doesn't come without stress.
Yeah, you're right, it doesn't. Goodness gracious.
Oh,
Hit me hard. 20 years old. She gone.
You had a really good point. You just totally took it away.
You were talking about generations or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the majority of young people, even those who claim to be Christians, say, I don't need a church. And we know from experience, there will be seasons in life when you need a church. You need the fellowship to bring strength and accountability and encouragement. You need that, whether you think you do right now or not.
Yeah.
So let's go on and take a left turn here, since we're getting fired up about stuff. I think the global pandemic, if you will, there's part of a generation that thinks all I need is the internet. And what we've done is we've made the gospel information.
Not transformation.
Yes, you stole it from me.
No, my
But it's so true though. Like, I mean, seriously, like we can get any information we want at our fingertips. We're in a foreign country using SIM cards we bought from the airport, and we can find whatever we need.
Most of the time.
But I think that's so important because, like you said, like there's coming a point in all of our lives where we need accountability. We need people that are going to push us, disciple us.
So if you look at even the history of the church and how it moves, when Christianity became an official religion of the government, of the state,
Late 3rd century.
Yep.
is actually the demise of the intense disciple-making movements until there's persecution that ramps it back up, because basically Christianity or any religion of the state just becomes a religion.
Yeah.
It's not alive in the people. It's a thing that you participate in. It's not something you live out.
Yeah.
And that's what this letter's about. It's what we try to communicate on a weekly basis, is the gospel's got to be real in your life, and it's got to be something lived out in your life. We're not waiting on the government to tell us it's okay to be a Christian or not be a Christian, or whatever. Our relationship with Jesus trumps everything else, everywhere we go, even here.
Yeah.
So let me tell you some hope. I did a Sunday night session with about 30 high school students 2 weeks ago, and they were just meeting. They're a live group, sharing. And talking and relating with each other, and I just had an opportunity to share with them, which was a blessing to me. And I'm listening to them talk, and most of them were seniors. I said, so this is 1 year. 1 year of pandemic, 1 year of shut everything down. What have you learned? And they just one after another said, we need people. We need people. We need to be around others and build the relationships. We miss that.
Yeah.
So there is hope that, the Spirit of God's on the move.
Yeah.
And that awareness, although they don't see it as church, they don't see it as church. If the church is doing what the church is supposed to be doing, it is the answer to what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They see church. They see church as the reason they don't want church is they see it as an institutional gathering.
Yep.
Right? But it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a collection of people around a common cause, committed to Christ.
Yeah.
That's the deepest, richest fellowship, people connection
Yeah.
you ever have.
Well, when Jesus is speaking to these churches, he's writing to them, hold fast. Like the church in Philadelphia, hold fast. Well, it's not just an individual hold fast, hunker down, wait it out. It is, hey, this is coming, but I'm commending you as a church, encourage one another. Hold each other accountable. Remember the gospel. Like, this is not written to just people that are supposed to go their own separate ways and wait out this persecution. It's like, no, you're going to be in this together and hold fast together. Strengthen each other when you need strengthened, and you'll receive the crown at the end.
And whether it's 5, 6, 8 people in a home on a Sunday or Wednesday, Monday night doing a life group, whatever.
Yeah.
Or it's the gathering on Sunday. I mean, there's power. Yeah. There's power in that.
I think that hold fast term too, it's a picture of active waiting. It's not passive waiting.
Right.
And so that's a really important thing for us to understand too. It's not like sit back, hunker down. It's like, no, we're going into this knowing that you're not going to take any ground, but like you're going forward anyway.
So I've got this image in my mind is this image of you're on the front of the ship and you're holding on to the pole and it's slamming the waves and the wind's blowing, and there's no time to do your what's that movie? The boat scenes.
Titanic.
There's none of that because it's like bear down and hang on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's that?
No jack moment.
No jack moment.
Stop jacking around.
It's serious. Hang on.
Yep.
But if you hang on, the destination is beautiful.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, we're enjoying this tour. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast from Philadelphia. Again, we'll close by reminding you the message of Revelation. Right? It's not about what's coming. It's about who's coming. It's about knowing Jesus.